Hello everybody, it's me Chris at ProAm for a Friday chat as usual. Now this week I've got to be careful what I say because obviously things are progressing in a way that I don't like with certain companies. As you know, I've been told you many times, I've had this business for 30 years. Before I started this business, I worked for another martial arts company who were opening up a boxing side called ProTech. Neil, who owns ProTech, it's still trading, lovely people. I learnt the business side and ordering and things through Neil. And we had a good working relationship at the time. It was just that I needed a young family with a mortgage, I needed to earn more money. So I left and set up my own company. Not that I got that much more money, but there you go. Now, with the factories I work with, I do my own designs. I know what I need them to feel like and how they should be and the way I'd like them made with certain paddings, etc. There's no fancy scientific way of doing it. I don't have CAD drawings. I do it, starts off with a basic sketch and we go from there, and then it's samples are made, they're tested in the gym with me boxes, and depending on what it is, some of the kids at the amateur side of it, so if it's pro geared, the pros will use it. When we feel it's perfect and it's right, talking to everybody, then we'll bring in a small order and see how the sales go. If they sell really well, then we'll start bringing full orders in, and it's then part of our catalogue, if you like. Now, when I first started out, I did work with other companies, and we were all friendly and we all worked together. There wasn't as many as there is today. I worked with Elvis Phillips, who owns Grant. He's the original owner of Grant. We were good friends. I introduced the brand to UK and Europe. In fact, professional boxers I trained at the time were the first ones to actually use them on Sky TV and professional shows. We worked together quite well. I didn't fully design things for Elvis, but we bounced ideas off each other and improved what he had at the beginning. Sometimes he listened, sometimes he didn't, as friends and business associates are. But I always stated the first lot of gloves that he had made were better than the ones he does currently, but he'll tell you the other way. But that's personal preference, and we haven't fallen out. We still remain friends, although we don't speak as much as we used to, and I don't distribute the brand anymore. I also, before that, I worked with Everlast. Now, the original company at Everlast, they'd owned it for a long time. The actual owner was in his mid to late 80s, lovely chap, typical New York Jewish business owner with his big cigar and etc. And we got on okay, although I had to be very careful because he was very sharp, business minded man, and we were speaking, a lot of their stuff was very old fashioned and needed updating, and they asked me to, at my expense, get some samples made and of my ideas of what would bring the Everlast brand into the future and make it look more modern. So I got them some gloves, some headgear, focus mitts, punch bag shapes. So we sent them all over to them, and they were testing, they were looking at them, etc. And I got a message back saying, yeah, if you do go ahead with your designs, we'll give you a nod and we'll pay you for the designs. And then I got a message back a few months later saying they weren't going to go ahead with those designs, and they were simple things because a lot of the gloves they were doing at the time, the pro stuff was made in the Bronx, New York factory, and they had a lot of cheaper end stuff made in Sialkot, Pakistan, like everyone else does. but they were cheap end, you know, injection moulded foam, Velcro wristed gloves. A lot of the focus mitts were just a flat piece of foam covered in vinyl with a fingerless glove attached to the back. They weren't ideal. I introduced them to the more teardrop shape and curved pads, which we started selling, and introduced them to them, and a lot of other things. Cut a long story short, the old guy decided to retire and sell the company to another New York based clothing brand. They closed the factory down in the Bronx, shipped most of the manufacturing up to China. It was poorly made at the time and wasn't durable enough to be boxing. We bought a container load off them and it was really poor quality. We couldn't come to an agreement on how they were going to either reimburse or replace a lot of the damaged goods. So we stopped working together with the new side of the company. The following year they brought out all the designs that I'd sent over. And when I questioned them about it, they sort of knew nothing about who designed it. It wasn't nothing to do with me, so they weren't going to pay me. So therefore we ended our relationship that way. Similarly with Cleto Rays, I used to do a lot with Cleto Rays. I advised them on when they very first started doing Velcro strap gloves, because they only ever did the traditional Mexican lace-ups. They were just getting them started when we weren't allowed to be a distributor anymore, because some guy had signed them up to a binding contract. I believe he was working out of his garage or shed or whatever, and he couldn't keep enough stock in to keep everybody happy, but he'd lashed them to this contract, so we couldn't work with them anymore, so that ended that. So there you see, we did know and work with all the big name brands in the past, including the original Lonsdale and the second Lonsdale owners. We worked with those as well, but obviously since Sports Direct took the brand and he does what he does, and it's dead now, isn't it? So nobody will wear the stuff or touch it really. So that's the story of where we started off designing. So with all this going on, I used to just buy in our own stuff, and I'd buy in generic made gloves from the factory that we used in India at the time, and they'd send me samples of various kinds of gloves and headgear, and I would say, yes, that's nice, this isn't, this one, yeah. So that's the way we were doing it at the time. We decided to go for what's called AIBA approval, which is approval for amateur boxing gloves and headgear to be used in competitions. Now, that meant I had to design my own versions of everything. So I designed a unique headguard, which was good in many ways. It was very popular, it was affordable. I think we used to sell them for about £50 each. We had the full colour range, because at the time you didn't just have red and blue headguards, you could have a black or a white one, as long as it was a neutral colour. That red and blue hadn't sort of come into effect, that ruling yet. They had the AIBA stamp on to say they were approved. We passed all the testing, so that was the first real thing that I designed from scratch. We also did a glove, which I've showed you before. We've got a blue version left here in our museum, which performed better than everybody else's. The first big tournament that came up when we did that was the 2002 Manchester Commonwealth Games, where everything was used. And we used to sell a lot of it back then because it was very durable, it was affordable for all amateur clubs and international teams. It was used all over the world on tournaments, which was preferable. It did really well, but AIBA, IBA being what they are and constantly changing chairman of the international committee and stuff like that, they had their preferential friends doing things, and they started asking us for money for more money and more money and more money, and much the same as it is today. You pay for your testing fees for your gloves and your head guards, and then they want a yearly licensing fee that's a ridiculous amount of, say, $20,000 a year. And then you get certain officials who used to come to certain, say, Russian official would come and go, you'd get an email going, would you like your equipment to be used in the European Championships in Kazakhstan next month? If you donate 50 blue head guards, 50 red head guards, and 100 blue gloves and 100 red gloves, and you send me $50,000 in this account, I'll make sure your stuff gets used. So it was sort of a bribe to get it used, and plus you have to give them a load of free equipment. Now, I never really minded giving them free equipment if it was in the poorer countries, to help out. But paying bribes I didn't agree with, so eventually I withdrew from AIBA approved equipment. The only companies that really stayed were big companies who could afford to pay bribes, as we say, or brown envelopes in the back pocket, and those who could afford to pay the licensing fee every year. Now, what happens when you pay a licensing fee? You've got a lot of payouts for a certain pair. Say the gloves cost £25 a pair to be made. You retail them at 50, so you're doubling your profit margin. Now, out of that profit margin, you've got to take out your testing fee, your licensing fee. So, same with the head guard, say, costs £15 to be made. You've got to add them costs on top of it. So, these companies who are carrying on that, stay with me here, to make it profitable, they have to put the prices up. Hence now we see gloves and headgear being £80 to £120. They don't use the expensive materials, they use cheaper materials. So they're making a profit. So the standard of protection and safety goes down, the price goes up. So we didn't want any part of that. We tried to help out World Boxing. They used all our knowledge and advice and went down the same route as the AIBA in the end, so we didn't want to be part of that either. We wanted to supply amateur clubs at grassroots, where it all begins. It's not just international tournaments. Affordable, safe equipment, but they didn't understand, or they didn't want to be bothered. They wanted more money in their own bank. So we've left the amateur side of that to one side. So my designs for the amateur gear, although in my mind, as usual, better than everybody else's, we didn't like to be paying people who don't deserve to be paid. Basically, coming on to the modern times anyway, obviously since then I've concentrated on best value for money for everybody. So we've had our club gloves at a reduced price for many years. That helps people to get into the sport knowing they've got good quality and affordable equipment. It's got to that stage now where, obviously, I've told you before, we're not making any money, and to keep the brand viable and out there for you, we've had to put prices up. And other companies who like our quality have been copying. Now, we've had problems with certain brands like Messenger and other ones who just plainly ripped us off, made my personal designs, put their logo on and sold it, and sold our designs to other brands. Even designs that we'd rejected as not being safe enough, they've sold them to other brands and they've been out on the market. I did say to you within this last year that I thought Hit and Move was getting very close to our designs. What a lot of companies do, they'll buy a glove or something and they'll send it to a factory in Pakistan. Can you copy that glove and put my logo on it? That's simply what they do. Obviously that factory is not the original factory, so it won't be as good. Now, I thought the hit and move Safari, as we've tested and done before, was very, very close to our hybrid ones. And I was a bit suspicious, and our factory went, well, we've not given it to anybody. So possibly one of their customers could have gone to them and gone, try this, it's a good idea. Obviously we're on our hybrid 2s now, which are an improvement on the hybrid 1s. But as customers have sent us other things, he sent us this one, which is the all day, or yeah, the hit and move all day, which when you looked at it, looked very similar to our club lace-ups. And again, the difference being the padding is not the same, but the glove does look very similar. So I'm not saying the people at Hit and Move did that purposefully or in any way, but like I've spoke to the guy Anis who owns Bravos. He actually sat here in the shop 2 meters away from me and said, yeah, he bought a load of Adidas and a load of Rival, sent it to his friend's factory in Pakistan, and said, put my logo on it. And you can see the factory isn't the greatest, as you've seen with some of the stuff we've tested of theirs, and it looks very similar to a lot of Rival gear. If you look at the headgear, they look like RS 100 style headguards. His fight gloves, I'm not sure what they're a copy of, but he did some gloves very similar to the Adidas Adistar glove, and the rest of them look very, very much like Rival. They've even got the angled Velcro, so he's blatantly done that one at Bravos. Now, in the last 2 years, since we've had our fight gloves, our 2 kind of fight gloves approved, this is the FF, the foam based one, and the HH, the horsehair based glove. They've become very popular. A lot of pro fighters are now using them worldwide. Funny enough, more abroad than here, although quite a few use them here. If they know, they know. A lot of them are sponsored and supplied by our competitors, so they're not bothered as long as they get a free glove. Now everyone's who's used our gloves rave over them now. They say these are the best fight gloves for the pros they've ever worn. They're comfortable, they don't cause facial injuries unnecessarily like a lot of them do, and they don't cause hand injuries either. Now they've been all over social media with various boxers using them and us pushing them and plugging them. Last week, in fact, we were talking to one of our factories, our supplier, and he says to me, he's had a lot of people asking, can they make our gloves for their brand? So obviously they know who we are, and I've asked them, oh, who are these people? Now, he did say at one point that Rival have been asking, but not to copy our brand. Rival just would like the workmanship, and they would be interested in them doing some work for them at the factory, which is a different thing altogether. We talked, and because I designed these from the ground up, the way they're padded inside and everything, these are my designs. The factory just make them for me. So don't get that confused with what Rival are doing. Rival just like maybe the workmanship, and they want their stuff, their designs and their models made by the same factory. Different thing. Now, the message I got last week was a certain company have asked, they sent them a picture of one of our gloves. I'll show you here. It's a custom glove that we make for some of our champions. We do this if any of the top fighters want a custom colour glove or their logo put on these gloves, we will do it. There's quite a few. Tyrone Buttigieg in Gibraltar, he uses, and in fact he uses this glove, the FF. He prefers this one because it's more protective on his hands, but he likes this design. So we're going to get him made next time, but he's always used these. And anyway, in his last fight he had a black pair of gloves with his logo El Brombrero written down here. There were these FF08s, and the picture was viral everywhere. It showed him in his fight wearing them, and it showed you pictures of them all over Instagram and other social media platforms. Now, first of all, the factory tells me this picture was sent to them by a company and said, we really like these gloves, can you make them for us? Now, they're a US based company, as we've mentioned before, and now we don't speak with our US distributors, we don't have nothing to do with them. They did have both of these model of gloves in stock, so they could have bought them through them. They haven't bought them off me, that's for certain. And obviously they've evaluated them, and they've not asked for our Teo Warrior thumb, you just want them plain, but they want the glove. So rightly so, our factory has said to them, we make the glove but we don't design it. The design belongs to ProAm, so we cannot make that glove for you. Now, a lot of factories over in Selcott would have just seen pound signs or dollar signs and took the job on. Now, this company, they tell everybody how they scientifically design every bit of equipment they make. So what were they going to say about the new fight glove they were trying to do? They scientifically stole the idea off me, basically, and, you know, got it out the back door. So I wasn't very happy about that, them approaching to copy our glove. Thankfully, the factory have said what they've said. No, it's not our design, we're not allowed to do this. No. And the flat no. So at first, all I was told was this company said that. So I asked for the name of the person, and it's the actual owner of the brand who's done that. And he said, and then he came back to me and said, that's not the only company we've been asked this last week or so. We want to copy your glove. There's another company, shall we say, without mentioning names, they started off doing training clothing, t-shirts, shorts, hoodies, etc., hand wraps. Now they do boots, typically Chinese boots. Nothing wrong with that. They've been threatening for the last 5 years to bring out boxing gloves and headgear, etc. They've shown everybody pictures, they've shown everybody, or some people, basic samples of these nice looking gloves with their logo on. Now they've approached our factory as well, and funny enough, they've showed the same pictures of Tyrone's gloves on social media with the bold ProAm boxing logo on the glove. Can we have these gloves made with our logo? Once again I said, who's approached you? Is it just somebody on behalf of the factory or a supplier, a middleman? And he said, oh no, this is the owner's name, and he gave me the owner's name. These people are not boxing people, they're entrepreneurs, so they don't know the difference between a good glove and a bad glove. They just want to make money with their logo, and they would probably get these gloves, put their logo on them, pay for the approval, as if the boxing board approval list isn't big enough and crazy as it is, and they'd probably be asking double what we charge anyway for my work. Now, what I can say to these companies is, if you want the best designs of gloves, don't be a shit house or a bad person. Call me and I'll design gloves for you, but you will have to pay me the going rate to have the best gloves made, or failing that, you'll have to pay me the going rate for my advice. Don't steal ideas. Over the years, many of the simple ideas in boxing have been stolen, copied, whatever you want to call it. Simple things like this. Get up and grab it. Semi-stretch hand wraps. I designed these way back in 2001 because the old herringbone style didn't have that little bit of stretch, and they were too thick and they were a bit awkward putting your gloves on. You take your glove off and it'd all unravel inside the glove. The factory that worked with me at the time in India came over, the boss came over, and we decided we wanted this kind of material for hand wraps. AIBA at the time had asked us, they call this material Velpo, and they asked us for 1,000 pairs in white with the AIBA stamp on. That's the only ever approved hand wrap by an international governing body. If anyone wants to dispute that, I can tell them that one. They were only all in white, and they had the AIBA logo on. We made them. They were the first ones. Within a month of this going out, everybody was doing the new semi-stretch hand wrap. Now, the way I explained it to the owner of the Indian factory at the time was, we had the herringbone hand wraps that we had made in various colours, and I used to sell Mexican bandages for pro fighters. So he said, what shall we put it on the invoice as for the paperwork? I said, well, it's a hand wrap, it's a Mexican bandage, so it's a mix of the two. We'll call it a Mexican hand wrap. Some of the people who copied us even had the gall to call them Mexican hand wraps, which was just a simple thing for us to say. It's just a blend of the two things, the two ideas. The hermits I've banged on about so many times. I developed them to absorb the shock because I had a torn rotator cuff training one of my boxers for a title fight, and after that show I had several other boxers coming up to shows, and there was only me that could do the pad work with them, so I needed a way of not damaging that injury further. That's how air pads or air mitts were invented. Everybody's just copied them as well. Not as well as we do them, but everyone's just copied them. Simple things like originally everybody had flat focus pads. Most coaches used to bend and manipulate them so they could cup and catch the shots on these flat pads. I come out with a brainstorm one day and I said, why don't we make the pads pre-curved? Everybody makes pre-curved pads, mainly because unscrupulous suppliers selling your design to other people, which we always know about anyway, and there's no copyright laws in Pakistan or China where the bulk of sports goods and boxing gear is made. So you can't get any. If I paid thousands of pounds to copyright those in the UK, that doesn't necessarily mean the same copyright laws apply in the USA, and they certainly don't apply where they're not recognised in China and Pakistan. So I'd be wasting money getting things copyrighted. So I've always been the kind of person, a deal's a deal, on a handshake type of old school person. You don't have to sign a contract. If you're going to cheat somebody, if you're that low, you're that low, and you're not worth doing business with. So I've never ever had any of these ideas copyrighted, and people just, bigger companies just take them on board and steal them and charge everybody twice as much money. This is where I say, this is the only boxing brand, it's been going 30 years, and it's the only boxing brand that has somebody designing it and owning all the brand, who actually is involved. I had a good number of amateur contests, and I've been a level 3 amateur coach and a professional boxing trainer for nearly 30 years, and manager. So I've always, from the age of 10 or 11, been involved in boxing. I've seen some of the poor quality equipment that we used to use, and I've improved it using my experience. When you think about it, the other people who have major brands, they don't have that experience. So where are they going to get the good ideas from? From idiots like me who can't afford to copyright it. We're a small family company, really. We have been from day one. And our idea is to help people at grassroots as well as world champions to have the best, most affordable equipment. These other big companies are just stealing ideas and stealing your money, basically, because they've no idea. I speak to a few of them. They're always trying to get me to sell their stuff in our shop. I don't really want to sell other brands' equipment anymore, unless it runs parallel. I don't mind selling other people's boots or training clothing and stuff like that, but we specialise in boxing equipment. I'm very picky on what has our brand logo on, as you might have guessed, and I'm very careful on how much it costs. It's got to be affordable and safe. That's my two main things. As long as it's affordable and safe, value for money, that's my thing. We do sell Adidas boxing boots because they've made them for 70 years or so, and you know what you're getting off them, they're quite popular. We do try and work with Nike sometimes, but they're hard work to get through to. We have been trying to get our own brand of boots done. Again, that's a minefield, as you know. A lot of the factories we talk to, they work for Nike, they work for other companies, and they'll sell us their other brands' boots without the logo on, because they sell them on Temu and other Shein and other Chinese type websites. Like I've showed you before, you get the Fly stuff and Nike stuff on these Chinese sites without their logo for a fraction of the cost of what these people sell them at on their own websites. I hope this one's been incisive and shows you. I am angry about these companies trying to rip me off as usual and not pay the way. Bit of a different one. I hope you enjoyed this one. It's an insight on how difficult business is. I've showed you how difficult it is trying to deal with suppliers. Now I'm trying to tell you how difficult it is with competitors, shall we say, although I don't think they come anywhere near what we do. Those of you who are customers, you know how we treat our customers. We go beyond customer relationship. We'll help you any way we can. You know, I believe if you treat your customers correctly and nicely, they'll always come back and they'll appreciate it. Same if I go to any shop, if I get treated poorly or with indifference, I don't really want to go back there. If I'm treated cheerfully and nicely and helped, I'll always go back there. So I always have that mantra: treat people how you'd like to be treated and you'll be treated fairly. So that's that one. On being treated fairly, we know a lot of you don't subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. Subscribe to us, please. We want to build this brand. We want to build this, not this brand, but we want to build this YouTube channel. We can get more things to you. We've got some really big plans, like I keep threatening everybody with. We're moving into a state-of-the-art gym very soon. So we're going to bring you really good stories from the gym. The difficult thing is it's going to cost us more to film at different times. So the more people we get following us, the more freedom we'll get to film you. Like I say, we don't have no theme tunes or nothing like that, like some of the fancy channels. We don't have enough followers to justify that at the minute. You just get my ugly mug ranting at you and showing you different gloves and how they're made, etc., and head guards and stuff. If you like that, fair enough, but we'd like to show you more, show you it all being used, show you what other people think of it, show you what our new gym's going to look like. You've seen little clips and snippets of our gym at the minute, which is a nice gym, but it's too small. So we need this big state-of-the-art thing that's close by, and it will be the best gym in the country once we get it up and in there. It's just so close, like we're getting so close to getting more likes and follows. So please like, follow, subscribe, pass us on to your friends. And I hope you've liked this one. I hope so anyway. I'm sorry I couldn't name names. I've really want to tell you who they are so you don't go and buy their stuff out of protest. But I have no money, so I'm very scared of being sued by these big rich companies. I don't think I can tell. I don't know. Maybe if I can find a way, if I get told, yeah, it's okay to me to tell you in the future, I'll tell you these latest 2 rip-off merchants. So, hope you've liked this one. Pass us round to everybody, get us on the thing, and I'll see you all next week.